Hi, my name is Ricky Wilkin, and today I'm going to be explaining my experience I had this semester with a kindergarten class. So, I'm going to explain a little bit about how the class was set up and what I saw happen there. So, I was at an elementary school in West Valley, and there were about 20 students in the kindergarten class, and about 4 of them were English language learners, and 3 of those students were from backgrounds speaking Spanish, and 1 was from a background speaking Somalian. So the room was set up in 4 different desks, so there were about 6 students to a desk, and the teacher arranged it so that students learning English were sitting by those who either spoke their home language or by other English language learners so that they could receive extra support from their peers. And most often the things that I noticed when I was there, that these students were able to work with another and really excel in being with those from different backgrounds in their classes. The administration did not have a very big part in what I noticed in my time in this classroom. They were more there for students who were struggling rather than focusing on helping the English language learners. The family situations of most of these students, most of them lived either with their mother and father, but there were a couple being raised by their grandparents or aunts and uncles as well. It was a Title I school. Most of the activities that I saw in the classroom were like language arts activities. So the teacher was instructing the students in learning the different letters of the alphabet and knowing words with those different letters, and being able to spell out simple sentences by copying down what the teacher wrote on the board. So most of it was repetition for the students to be able to keep learning about the basic skills needed for learning English, because it is a kindergarten class. And most often the teacher led group discussions and instruction, and then during that she would branch off and help the students that she could tell were struggling, and that was there to help them as well. So I'm going to give a couple examples of times that I noticed interesting things about these English language learners. So the first example is a girl from Somalia. She's been in Utah for probably about 1.5 or 2 years, so she doesn't know very much English. And so I was able to speak with her and notice some things that she did. One thing in particular that I noticed was that she had a hard time with pronouncing the k sound in like C's and K's. K. This voiceless stop was not present in Somalian. I was not aware of that until this, but they do not have a consonant that's similar to that in their language. So she was trying to learn this for the first time. So the teacher would have different sight words that the students would have to read before they could go out for recess. So she would make sure that when this student came up in line to say her sight word, that she would have a word with this sound in it so that the student could practice being able to say the k sound. So I noticed that she had to say can before she could go out to recess, and it was very difficult for her. She was still trying to be able to move her mouth in the ways to form that sound, but I noticed as the weeks went on that she was able to more fully pronounce that, and that was interesting for me because I hadn't thought of different languages having different types of sounds. I just assumed that they'd be similar to English just because I don't know any other languages. I feel like the teacher did a really great job in helping this student, and specifically choosing things that would help her to practice using these sounds, but I also feel like there could have been a little bit more direct instruction with the whole class in developing these sounds, that these were things that other students could have worked on too, especially the other students from Spanish backgrounds as well. So the second example I have was of a young boy. He had very simple language skills in English. He was from a Spanish speaking background, and he was having a difficult time learning English. When I first met him, he only knew 4 words, and 3 of those were his name, Batman, and yes. And so I would ask him a question, and he'd always say, yes, or I'd say, what are you drawing a picture of? And he would say, Batman. These were pretty much the only words he knew, and the teacher had a hard time with understanding what level he was at, because she would speak to him and he would just answer with one of those few words. But as the weeks went on, this teacher really focused on helping him expand his vocabulary, and by the end of it I was able to watch him coloring and say, what color is this? And held up a crayon to him and he'd say, yellow. But there were still some that he did not understand, and a lot of the times we had to keep extra eyes out on him in helping support him and make sure he was actually understanding what was being said. But I did notice that in the classroom there were a lot of things set up to help these students who were learning English. Like on the walls they had like colors with the like a picture of the color and then the written words above it. So I would notice that he was looking at those different pictures on the walls and he would look at the color and say yellow, and I feel like those things really helped him to gain just those little things that he needed, because he wasn't developing his language skills on the same level as the other students who were learning English. But there may be a need for special education services in his specific example. The last example I wanted to talk about was from the first girl that I discussed, the girl from Somalia. I noticed when she wrote that she would write on from right to left, not really in the letters that she wrote, but we were working on these little booklets, and so the teacher would instruct the students to be writing on the left page, and I noticed that she would always start writing on the right page rather than the left. And I thought she was just lost and didn't understand where she was supposed to be writing. But then I realized, and I asked her how they write Somalian, and it's from right to left. And so this was something that the teacher had to make sure this student understood, that in English we start on the left page and then go to the right rather than the opposite. But that also was something that stuck out to me, that something as simple as what page we write on first has a big impact on our students, of those who are learning English for the first time. I would do most of the same things that this teacher did. I feel like she was very aware of the different situations that the students were in and where they needed support and help. I feel like she really worked with them a lot, and I like the things she had in place. I would do similar things and having different things set up around the room in supporting these students. I would also make sure to get the families involved as well to help these students who are struggling to learn English or are just learning English in general. And I learned a lot from this class. It was interesting to see how kindergartners learn English. Like, I had never realized the little basic things that these beginning students need to be learning, because they're learning basic academic skills, but also language skills as well. So some of the experiences that I had may not have been similar to what you guys were experiencing because of me being in the kindergarten class, but I feel like I learned a lot from it, and I'll be better prepared to help my students be learning English in the future. Thank you.